Very urgent. Your soulmate needs to explain what happened this afternoon. My love, before you decide what you think happened this afternoon, before you allow your mind to create an explanation from the silence, before you convince yourself that the distance meant something terrible, I need you to listen to me. There is something I have been carrying inside myself for longer than I ever admitted. Something happened this afternoon. And I know that from the outside, it may have looked completely different from what it actually was. You may have noticed the change. You may have noticed the silence. You may have felt that strange shift in energy that made you wonder why I suddenly became distant, why I stopped responding the way I normally would, why my words became shorter, why my presence seemed to disappear at the exact moment you needed an answer. You may have asked yourself whether I was angry. You may have wondered if somebody else had entered my life. You may have feared that I had finally made a decision about us. But that is not the truth. The truth is much more complicated. And honestly, I was afraid to tell you. This afternoon forced me to confront something I had been avoiding. It forced me to look directly at feelings I had spent months pretending were not there. It forced me to realize that avoiding the truth does not make the truth disappear. Sometimes silence is not rejection. Sometimes silence is what happens when someone is standing in the middle of an emotional storm and has no idea which direction to walk. That is where I was this afternoon. Standing between what I wanted to say and what I was terrified you would think if I said it. I wanted to reach for my phone. I wanted to type your name. I wanted to tell you everything. But every time I started writing, I stopped. Because how do you explain something that even you are still trying to understand? How do you tell someone, I wasn't ignoring you because I stopped caring? How do you explain, I disappeared because I cared too much? How do you admit that your silence wasn't punishment? It was fear. And today, that fear became impossible to hide. This afternoon began like an ordinary afternoon. Nothing seemed unusual at first. The world continued moving. People continued talking. Phones continued ringing. Cars continued passing. Life continued as though nothing important was happening. But inside me, something was changing. There was a thought I could not escape. It was you. Not simply your face. Not simply your voice. Not simply the memories we created. It was the question of us. The question I had been avoiding. What am I going to do about this person who still means so much to me? I didn't have an answer. And that frightened me. Because I had spent so much time convincing myself that I was in control. I told myself I could walk away whenever I wanted. I told myself I could stop thinking about you. I told myself that enough time would erase the feelings. I told myself that distance would make everything easier. But this afternoon proved something I didn't want to admit. Distance did not erase you. Silence did not erase you. Time did not erase you. And pretending not to care certainly did not erase you. You were still there. Somewhere inside every quiet moment. Somewhere between every unfinished thought. Somewhere inside every song that reminded me of a moment we shared. somewhere in the strange ache that appeared whenever I imagined you moving forward without me. And that was when I realized something. I wasn't afraid of losing you because I didn't care. I was afraid because I cared more than I had ever allowed myself to admit. This afternoon, something happened that made that realization impossible to ignore. I heard something. I saw something. I remembered something. And suddenly, all the walls I had built around my emotions felt fragile. For a moment, I wanted to run. Not away from you. Away from the truth. Because the truth demanded something from me. It demanded honesty. And honesty meant admitting that I had made mistakes. It meant admitting that there were moments when I hurt you without realizing how deeply my actions affected you. It meant admitting that some of my silence was selfish. It meant admitting that I sometimes expected you to understand feelings I never explained. And perhaps the hardest thing of all was admitting that I had been waiting for you to make the first move while secretly hoping you would somehow read my mind. That wasn't fair. You deserved clarity. You deserved an explanation. You deserved more than mysterious silence and unanswered questions. And this afternoon, I finally understood that. Maybe you thought I was choosing someone else. Maybe you thought I had forgotten everything. Maybe you thought I was preparing to leave. But I wasn't. I was preparing to tell you something. Something I should have told you long ago. I am still emotionally connected to you. There. I said it. Maybe it sounds simple. Maybe it sounds like something you already knew. But for me, admitting it is terrifying. Because once words leave your mouth, you cannot take them back. And once you admit that someone still matters, you become vulnerable to losing them. That is what I have been afraid of. Not loving you. Losing you. There is a difference. I could pretend I didn't care. I could act distant. I could bury myself in distractions. I could tell everyone that I had moved on. But the moment I was alone, the truth returned. You. Always you. And this afternoon, I finally became tired of lying to myself. I need you to understand something important. What happened today was not caused by a lack of love. It was caused by an overwhelming amount of emotion that I didn't know how to handle. I became overwhelmed. My thoughts became louder than everything around me. I started replaying old conversations. I remembered things you said that I once ignored. I remembered the look in your eyes during moments when I should have understood that you were hurting. I remembered promises I made but didn't keep properly. I remembered times when you reached toward me emotionally and I responded with distance. And suddenly, I saw everything differently. I realized that maybe you weren't asking for too much. Maybe you were simply asking for the bare minimum. Communication. Honesty. Consistency. Reassurance. Presence. And perhaps I was the one who made those things complicated. That realization hurt. But it also changed something inside me. I don't want to continue repeating the same pattern. I don't want another conversation where we pretend everything is fine while both of us know it isn't. I don't want another goodbye followed by days of silence and secret longing. I don't want to keep wondering what could have happened if I had simply been brave enough to tell you the truth. So I'm telling you now. This afternoon scared me. Not because something terrible happened to you. Not because I stopped loving you. But because I realized how quickly life can change. One ordinary afternoon can become the moment that forces you to question everything. One unexpected conversation can reveal feelings you thought you had buried. One small reminder of someone can make you understand that they were never truly gone from your heart. And that is what happened to me. I was reminded of you. And suddenly, I couldn't pretend anymore. I remembered your patience. I remembered the way you listened. I remembered the moments when you stayed even when leaving would have been easier. I remembered the times you gave me another chance. And I remembered how many times I took that patience for granted. Maybe you don't know this, but some of my hardest moments were the moments when I acted like I didn't need you. Because deep down, I did. I just didn't know how to say it. I thought needing someone made you weak. Now I understand that honesty is not weakness. Vulnerability is not weakness. Loving someone sincerely is not weakness. And admitting that you miss someone is not losing control. It is simply being human. This afternoon made me human again. For a while, I had become an expert at pretending. Pretending I was fine. Pretending I had moved on. Pretending the memories didn't matter. Pretending your absence didn't hurt. Pretending your name didn't still have the power to change my entire mood. But today, the pretending stopped. And perhaps that is why I went quiet. I wasn't ignoring you. I was fighting with myself. One part of me wanted to reach out immediately. Another part whispered, "What if they don't want to hear from you anymore?" One part wanted to apologize. Another said, "You've already apologized too many times." One part wanted to tell you I still loved you. Another asked, "What if they have finally stopped loving you?" And between those voices, I froze. That was the silence you felt. It wasn't emptiness. It was conflict. A battle between hope and fear. Between pride and vulnerability. Between the person I had been and the person I know I need to become. And if I could go back to this afternoon, I would do one thing differently. I would not disappear. I would tell you. I would say, "Please don't misunderstand my silence. I am not leaving. I am trying to find the courage to explain. I still care. I am scared. I don't know exactly what happens next. But I don't want to lose you because I was too afraid to speak." Maybe that is the message you needed to hear. Maybe that is the explanation I should have given you hours ago. And there is more. Because what happened this afternoon didn't only reveal my feelings about you. It revealed something about myself. I realized that I have been carrying guilt. Guilt for every misunderstanding. Guilt for every unanswered message. Guilt for every time you wondered whether you mattered. Guilt for every moment I chose silence instead of communication. And I don't want guilt to become the foundation of whatever happens next. I don't want to come back to you simply because I'm afraid of losing you. I want to come back because I am finally willing to do things differently. There is a difference. Anyone can return when they feel lonely. Anyone can send a message when they miss someone. Anyone can say, "I love you," when they are afraid of being alone. But real love requires more. It requires accountability. It requires patience. It requires consistency. It requires choosing each other even when the emotional excitement disappears. And if there is another chapter for us, I don't want it to be built on promises made during panic. I want it built on truth. That's why I need you to hear this carefully. Don't make a decision about us based only on what happened this afternoon. You don't know the whole story. You saw the silence. You didn't see the struggle behind it. You saw the distance. You didn't see the fear that created it. You saw the unanswered words. You didn't hear the hundreds of words I wrote and deleted. You saw me pull away. You didn't see how badly I wanted to come closer. That doesn't excuse everything. I know that. But it explains something. And I owe you that explanation. This afternoon, I opened our old conversation. I read things I hadn't looked at in a long time. Some messages made me smile. Others made me uncomfortable. Because I could see exactly where things started changing. I could see where I became less open. I could see where you started protecting your heart. I could see where both of us began communicating through assumptions instead of words. And I realized something painful. We didn't necessarily stop caring. We stopped explaining. That's how distance grows. Not always through one enormous betrayal. Sometimes through hundreds of tiny misunderstandings. A message left unanswered. A question avoided. A feeling swallowed. An apology postponed. A conversation delayed. A moment misunderstood. And eventually, two people who still care begin behaving like strangers. I don't want that to be our ending. Not without telling you the truth. So here it is. This afternoon changed my perspective. It reminded me that tomorrow is never guaranteed. It reminded me that people can disappear from your life without giving you the closure you thought you would receive. It reminded me that pride can make you lose things that your heart never wanted to lose. And it made me ask myself a question. If you could say only one honest thing to this person today, what would it be? My answer was immediate. I never stopped caring. I wish I could say it without fear. I wish I could say it without wondering what you will think. I wish I could guarantee that everything will work out perfectly. I can't. But I can promise honesty. And perhaps honesty is where everything should have started. Maybe this isn't the perfect moment. Maybe we're both carrying wounds. Maybe we still have questions. Maybe there are things you need to tell me too. That's okay. We don't need to solve everything in one conversation. We just need to stop running away from the conversation. Because I am tired. Not tired of you. Tired of pretending. Tired of guessing. Tired of wondering. Tired of acting like my heart doesn't remember. Tired of protecting myself so aggressively that I ended up hurting the person I wanted to protect myself from losing. And if you are still willing to listen, I want to explain everything. Not dramatically. Not with manipulation. Not with promises I cannot guarantee. Just honestly. Because you deserve the truth. And the truth is that this afternoon wasn't the ending. It was a wake-up call. It made me realize that something between us is still unfinished. There are words that haven't been spoken. There are apologies that haven't been given. There are questions that deserve answers. There are feelings that never received a proper goodbye. And maybe that is why you have felt this strange tension lately. Because unfinished emotions have a way of making themselves known. They appear in quiet moments. In memories. In dreams. In songs. In random places. In the sudden urge to check someone's name. In the feeling that something remains unresolved. I felt that today. And I can no longer ignore it. So if you are wondering what happened this afternoon, here is the simplest answer I can give you. I realized I still have something to say. I realized I still care. I realized I don't want fear to make my decisions anymore. And I realized that if I remain silent, I may eventually lose the opportunity to tell you what you deserve to hear all along. I am not asking you to forget everything. I'm not asking you to immediately trust me. I'm not asking you to erase your pain. I'm asking for one thing. Listen. Not because you owe me. Not because fate demands it. Not because some mysterious force says you must. Listen only if your heart is willing. And if it isn't, I will understand. Because love should never be forced. But if there is even a small part of you that still wonders why I disappeared this afternoon, now you know. I was scared. I was overwhelmed. I was remembering. I was regretting. I was fighting with myself. And beneath all of that, I was still thinking about you. I don't know what tomorrow brings. But I know what I don't want. I don't want another day to pass with both of us pretending we don't care. I don't want another night where you wonder whether you mattered. You did. You do. And whatever happens from here, that truth deserves to be spoken. This afternoon didn't destroy everything. It revealed everything I had been trying not to see. And maybe, just maybe, that revelation came at exactly the moment when I needed it. Because sometimes the most important conversations begin after the silence becomes unbearable. Sometimes people don't come back because everything is perfect. They come back because they finally understand what they almost lost. And this afternoon, I finally understood. I almost lost you. And the thought terrified me. Not because I can't live without you. I can. But because I don't want to spend the rest of my life wondering what could have happened if I had simply been brave enough to tell you the truth. So here I am. No masks. No excuses. No pretending. Just the truth. I still care. I still remember. I still wonder. And I still believe that some conversations deserve to happen before the door closes completely. If you are listening right now, take a breath. Don't rush. Don't assume. Don't let fear write the ending before the truth has been heard. Because this afternoon was not the whole story. It was only the moment when I finally realized that I needed to tell you the rest.